in giving, 2. In the vision and cognition of emancipation. Endowed with that morality, he transcends the levels of the disciples and pratyekabuddhas, and thereafter through that mass of morality, 2. That mass of the vision and cognition of emancipation, establishes beings in the triple vehicle and frees them from samsara. It is thus that one conceives a bodhisattva's gradual activity, training, and progress. But all that cannot be apprehended. And why? Because it has no own being. The sixth perfection of patience. The sixth perfection of vigor. The sixth perfection of concentration. The sixth perfection of wisdom. Moreover, the bodhisattva, from the first thought of enlightenment onwards, courses in perfect wisdom and establishes beings in giving, in morality, 2. In the vision and cognition of emancipation. When he courses in perfect wisdom, he himself gives gifts, guards morality, achieves patience, exerts vigor, enters on the trances, and develops wisdom. He establishes also others in giving, 2. Wisdom, and he speaks in praise of them. And those also who give gifts, 2. Develop wisdom, them also he praises, 1. Acquiescent. With the helps of these six perfections, he transcends the levels of the disciples and pratyekabuddhas, enters on the bodhisattva's certainty of salvation, purifies the Buddha field, matures beings, and reaches the knowledge of all modes. Having established beings in the triple vehicle, he frees them from samsara. But all that cannot be apprehended. And why? Because it has no own being. The six recollections. Moreover, the bodhisattva trains in the gradual activity, the gradual training, the gradual process. From the first thought of enlightenment onwards he has, with his attentions associated with the knowledge of all modes, resolutely believed in all dharmas as having non-existence for own being. And he develops the recollection of the Buddha, of the Dharma, of the Sangha, of morality, of renunciation, and of the deities. The recollection of the Buddha. And how does the bodhisattva develop the recollection of the Buddha? Here he does not attend to the tathagata through the skandhas. And why? Because they have no own being, and what has no own being, that is a non-existent. And why? A non-recollection and a non-attention is the recollection of the Buddha. A tathagata further should not be attended to through the 32 marks of the Superman, nor through his golden-colored body, nor through the effulgence of his halo or his 80 minor characteristics. And why? Because the effulgence of his body and the minor characteristics have no own being, and what has no own being, that is non-existent. And why? A non-recollection and a non-attention is the recollection of the Buddha. The tathagata should further not be attended to from his mass of morality, 2. The mass of his vision and cognition of emancipation. And why? Because all these have no own being, and what has no own being, that is non-existent. And why? Because the recollection of a Buddha is a non-recollection and a non-attention. Furthermore, the tathagata should not be attended to through the 10 powers of a tathagata. The 4 grounds of self-confidence, the 4 analytical knowledges, the great friendliness, the great compassion, or the 18 special dharmas of a Buddha. And why? Because they have no own being, and that which has no own being, that is non-existent. And why? Because the recollection of the Buddha is a non-recollection and a non-attention. Furthermore, a tathagata should not be attended to from conditioned co-production. And why? Because this has no own being, and that which has no own being, that is non-existent. And why? Because the recollection of the Buddha is a non-recollection and a non-attention. It is thus that the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom should attend to the recollection of the Buddha. It is thus that his gradual activity, training, and progress is conceived, and it is by training himself in these that he fulfills by gradual methods the 4 applications of mindfulness, 2. The knowledge of all modes, and that through the non-existence of own being. He will fully know all dharmas as just non-existent, and he will with regard to them no longer even have the notion of an own being. The recollection of the Dharma. And how should the bodhisattva develop the recollection of the Dharma? Here the bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, should not attend to wholesome or unwholesome dharmas. to determinate or indeterminate dharmas, to worldly or supramundane ones, to fleshly or spiritual ones, to holy or unholy ones, to dharmas with or without outflows, not to dharmas included in the world of sense desire, in the world of form, or in the formless world, nor to conditioned or unconditioned dharmas. And why? Because these dharmas have no own being, and what has no own being, that is non-existent. Because the recollection of the dharma is a non-recollection and a non-attention. Here, fully knows, and therein there is not event he notion of the existence of the notion of an own being. It is thus that the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom should develop the recollection of the dharma. The recollection of the dharma. And how should the bodhisattva develop the recollection of the samga? Here the bodhisattva, endowed with morality, concentration and wisdom, emancipation and the vision and cognition of emancipation, should attend to the community of the Lord's disciples, the 4 pairs of men and the 8 great personages through the absence of own being. And why? Because they have no own being and are non-existent. For the recollection of the samga is a non-recollection and a non-attention. It is thus that the bodhisattva should develop the recollection of the samga, the recollection of morality. And how should the bodhisattva develop the recollection of morality? Here the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom should from the first thought of enlightenment onwards attend to the unbroken, flawless, unspotted, pure, untarnished morality, which has been lauded by the wise, which one has well taken upon oneself, which is conducive to concentration. All these acts of morality should be attended to by way of the non-existence of own being, so that with regard to them there is not even an act of recollection, how much less the departure of a recollection. And why? It is thus that the bodhisattva should attend to the recollection of morality, i.e., that there is in it not even the notion of an own being. The recollection of renunciation. And how should the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom develop the recollection of renunciation? Here, Subhuti, the bodhisattva should, through the non-existence of own being, attend to renunciation, be it a renunciation of fleshly things or a renunciation of dharma. And when he renounces things in such a way, he should not produce a thought thus: I give or I do not give. I renounce or I do not renounce. Even when he gives up all his limbs, he should not produce such a thought. And why? Because all this has no own being. When he thus courses in the recollection of renunciation and trains in it, he will gradually advance up to the knowledge of all modes, the recollection of deities. And how should the bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, develop the recollection of the deities? Here the bodhisattva should attend, through the non-existence of own being, to those gods who have been reborn in the various heavens. And why? Because they have no own being. And so should those deities be attended to, that there is with regard to them not even the action of recollection. When he attends thus, the bodhisattva gradually attends to everything up to the knowledge of all modes. And also the non-returners should be attended to as non-existent. And why? Because they have no own being, and what has no own being, that is non-existent. And so they should be attended to in such a way that there is with regard to them not even the action of recollection. When he attends thus, he gradually attends to everything up to the knowledge of all modes. It is thus that one conceives of the bodhisattva who attends thus to the 6 recollections: the gradual activity, training, and method, the cognition of the non-existence of own being in dharmas. Moreover, it is the gradual activity, training, and method of a bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, that he should, through the non-existence of own being, train in the emptiness, too, in the great compassion. When he thus trains in the path to enlightenment, he shall fully know dharmas as non-existent in their own being. With regard to them there is not even the action of recollection, how much less can there possibly be form, too, the knowledge of all modes. It is thus that one conceives of the gradual activity, training, and method of the bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom. Subhuti. If all dharmas are non-existent in their own being, then there is no form, too, no attainment and reunion, too, no all-dharmas. The Lord Is then is-ness or not-is-ness apprehended in dharmas which have a non-existent own being? Subhuti. No, certainly not, O Lord. The Lord. How then can it be that, if all dharmas have a non-existent own being, then there is no form, to know all dharmas? Subhuti. Not do I, O Lord, hesitate and doubt with regard to these dharmas. But on the other hand there will be in a future period monks who belong to the vehicle of the disciples, or to that of the pratyekabuddhas, or to that of the bodhisattvas, and who will speak thus. If all dharmas are non-existent in their own being, who then can be defiled or purified by them? Since these people fail to cognize the defilement or purification which these dharmas may cause, they will fail in their morality, views, and conduct, and in consequence one must expect them to be reborn in one or other of three places or rebirth, in the hells, the inanimal world, or in the world of yama. It is because I consider this future peril that I question the tathagata about this subject, but it is not because I hesitate or doubt with regard to these dharmas. The Lord, well said, Subhuti, so it is as you say. End chapter 70.